Well, welcome back as we head into Hour 2 this Monday, March 16th, 2020. Head into Hour 2 of our daily 3-hour show. Delighted to be back with you. Equally delighted to have a Monday here where we get our good friend Brandon J. Weichert on regularly. The Weichert Report is his website where you can access all his content and articles. It's all free. Brandon is a geopolitical analyst. His book coming out in the fall, Winning Space, How America Remains a Superpower. The WeichertReport.com is his website. Brandon, happy Monday.
Happy Corona Monday to you, too.
Brother, I didn't know this. I knew you were a veteran of Capitol Hill. I didn't realize you worked for the great Tom Cotton. That's wonderful.
No, I didn't. I worked with him. No. I didn't work for him. I
equally good. Equally good. With
I had the pleasure.
The preposition doesn't matter to me. Anything you can do with Tom Cotton is great.
Out there.
Yeah,
I have experienced about a year's worth of work on and off doing things with his staff and him when he was a rep, a U.S. representative.
Oh, he's fantastic.
He is one of my favorite people. He actually, when my first daughter was born. I think, if I remember correctly, his first child was on the way, or he had just been born. But I do remember he was giving me some advice to handling my wife, when she's pregnant, and we were having good fun. He and I. He's a very down to earth guy, one of the good ones.
Oh yeah, he really is, and I got hip to him way back before he was even considering elected office, back when he wrote those letters to Powerline early on from the Iraq War.
Yeah. And he's been the only elected official, I think, that has been completely on the ball with this coronavirus, from its origins to its propagation to now how we handle it. And I hope that the administration is listening very closely, because I think that he has been on his game.
Yeah, I try to think about great U.S. senators, great governors, great representatives.
We don't have many of them
anymore. That's right. If you could come up with 5, you'd be lucky. Cotton is certainly at the top.
He's one of them. He's one of the good ones.
Yeah, it'd be fun to create that list. I think you could look at the Freedom Caucus. Who?
It would be very depressing to create that list.
Well, yeah, but maybe in a way optimistic. Maybe there's more than we think if you look at it. I mean, we've got a few. The Arizona Republican delegation is fantastic. I would tell you.
So is the Florida. We've got a handful of really good ones out here. So
and I'd put Dan Crenshaw on that list from Texas too, wouldn't you?
Yes, I do. Although he and I got into it at a meeting about a year ago. He could, of course, kill me with his pinky finger. Former special forces. But he and I got into a testy exchange over Space Force. He did not support it.
He'll come around.
I think he will.
He'll come around.
That's my big thing right now. He didn't want to have wasteful bureaucracy, and I said, man, that's not one that's wasteful. That's one we've needed for about 15 years.
He'll come around. It may have been new to him at the time. A lot of people haven't thought about Space Force or space in a long time, Brandon, which is why I'm looking forward to your book. It'll remind us of things we used to know.
That's if we're all still here.
Well, talk to me about that. You're in Florida. How's Florida handling all this?
Well, we've had a death in Lee County, which is, I live in Fort Myers, and so I'm right near the edge of Fort Myers and Naples. And we had a death, I think, a week ago at the hospital up the road from me. And the gentleman was 66 years old, had an underlying health condition.
Yeah.
Did not know he had it. Was walking around town, ended up being hospitalized, died from coronavirus, and it turned out he had been traveling overseas. And it's here. I mean, it's propagating, and the problem is I'm the biggest Trump supporter out there, but it is true that the administration, for the first week of this thing, 2 weeks, did not get the testing underway that they should have, and so now we're kind of making up the difference.
Brandon, I was looking for articles to dispel me of that notion. There aren't any.
No,
there is consensus that is true.
No, yeah, it's pretty much what happened. And at the one hand, yes, he's the president, so he's going to take a hit for that.
Yep.
On the other hand, though, I really don't think any president, regardless of party, would have been on top of this thing.
Well, I was saying that just before you got on.
Yeah.
I was talking about this piece. I think you've seen it, that Pete Wehner wrote, The Trump Presidency.
Yes, and I'm actually working. Yes.
Oh, okay. So I was just saying, find me a president that dealt with a black swan situation well.
Right.
I remember what they said about Bush in 9/11. I remember Fahrenheit 9/11.
The reading of the book when the 9/11 thing was going on. Yeah, the thing is that where was FDR when Pearl Harbor happened?
Right. I was thinking about that too.
If I remember correctly, he was gardening.
I remember that.
In the White House. I mean, this is one of those things where, yes, they're going to hang certain decisions he made or didn't make around him, and that's just part of being president, unfortunately. But I think the way that he has since reacted, I mean, he is a septuagenarian who acts like he's a 20-year-old in terms of the speed at which he operates.
Right.
I mean, he's out there doing these press conferences every day, randomly doing them on the fly. It's classic Trump. It's very reassuring, at least to me as a citizen. I know the markets don't always react the way he hopes. But the reason the markets are there's a couple things going on right now in the markets, and this is what I look at, is the systemic side. And so when the markets are reacting the way they are, it's for a couple reasons. First is because COVID-19 is not known. Okay, so it's not like the flu, where the flu's kind of baked into the cake. We all just anticipate a flu season.
Yep.
So
in fact, there's a word for it: the flu season. Right. Fair enough.
The flu season. Right. And so I was briefing the DoD 2 weeks ago. Of course, they've canceled now all my other briefings. But I was briefing them. I was flying back from Atlanta. There was a woman from the University of Minnesota Immunology Center who happened to get sat next to me, and she was telling me, because she was working with Osterholm's group, she was telling me that, hey, look, basically you're going to have to just deal with you got to wait till 70 to 80% of the population gets exposed to this thing, and then it becomes the new normal.
I see.
And then people psychologically are used to it, and then that's when I was like, well, then markets will get used to that then too. And she said, precisely. And I said, so, the markets are responding because this is an unknown. Okay, and once we get used to it, then things will start to stabilize much more, and then we'll rebound really. The other thing is the oil price war going on between Saudi Arabia and Russia. And so that's playing into why the futures dipped yesterday and why the market's not really doing well again. And so you've got other factors going on right now that are feeding off this coronavirus. But the president, for what he's doing, is doing the best I think we can hope for any American president. He's responding in a very expeditious manner. And, I do think that even though those first 2 weeks were wasted, and so I think going into April, mid-April, we're going to see, I think, a lot of problems with bottlenecks in the labs. I think with problems with the healthcare system not being able to accommodate everyone. I think we're probably going to have a surge of people showing up with coronavirus in probably mid-April, if the math is right. I think that the decisions he's made since those first 2 weeks will mean that will be a shorter amount of time. And I think that we will be able to stabilize the situation probably by mid-May, June. Doesn't mean the disease goes away.
Right.
It just means that we'll stabilize and people can start kind of getting used to things. And that's what I think is going on. And I think the president has made decisions since those first 2 weeks that have set up for success in the long term. That's what I think.
Well, I think so too. And I think, you don't have anyone saying things that they've said about other presidents, which is, where is he?
Right. And, he's in front of the camera
every single day. And that team is pretty darn good. I'll tell you the one
He's got a good team there.
I like Jerome Adams a lot, the U.S. Surgeon General. I say more of him.
Yeah, I really like Fauci.
Yep.
I know he scares the bejesus out of people. My wife worked at NIH, so she worked for him and Francis Collins for a period of time, and so she's very fond of them. And I think that he's doing a good job. Here's the thing, though, that I think your listeners need to anticipate.
Okay.
I keep getting yelled at by my friends on the Trump right, but we've got to understand. So they're stage managing this, right? So they say something, like, oh, maybe we should do a national lockdown. It's something we're looking at. And I've noticed that then within 2 weeks, we're doing it. And so I think people do need to start maybe getting used to the idea that when Fauci says something 2 weeks out, he's probably saying we're going to do it. So I think that, and I wrote this at the Weiger Report, I think we're probably going to see some type of shutdown of the domestic air travel. I think we're already seeing them doing it kind of on their own. I think you're probably going to see states of emergencies declared where National Guards for the states are coming in. We're already seeing panic at the grocery store. So
Fauci's the new Alan Greenspan.
Yeah.
Everyone wants to hear and work off what he says. I got to hit a break, Brandon. You're good for a little while. We'll go through some more politics. Wonderful. I'm Seth Leibson. He's Brandon Weichert, author, publisher, editor at The Weichert Report. TheWeichertReport.com is where you can access his information. We'll be right back. We're talking with Brandon Weichert from The Weichert Report, one of my favorite political writers and analysts. And speaking of politics, Brandon, we'll work our way back to the coronavirus in a moment. Did you catch the debate last night?
I caught part of it. I felt really bad watching it. It was pathetic to watch.
It really was. And you're not alone. It turned out to have one of the lower audiences in what I thought would be one of the higher audiences.
Yeah.
It was like 9 million viewers. People are staying home. They finally got Biden one-on-one with Bernie, and people just kind of tuned out.
It's kind of sad to see. I mean, I've never been fond of the Democratic Party, but it is one of the country's great political institutions, and that's the best they could do.
It's really amazing.
Just, it's kind of, and then you look at it, and I have family with cognitive, decline and old age.
Yeah.
So I've seen that,
yeah.
And of course we don't know medically for sure if there's anything. But I will say I've seen cognitive decline up close with elderly.
Sure.
And man, I look at Biden sometimes and I just see it in the eyes. That's just intuition, and I'm probably wrong. But
I don't know if you are or not. No one does. But no one knows. But he hasn't given it very much confidence to stop asking the question.
Yeah, no. And then Bernie, Bernie's just crazy. I mean, Bernie's just crazy. And
that's kind of what I thought. I thought last night he would take the opportunity to really throw Joe Biden some hardballs, and he couldn't. And all he did was say the same medley of his greatest hits.
Yeah, it's because he wants a payoff. I mean, let's face it. I'm pretty sure that's what this is about. He's waiting to get his next lake home. And so, they're going to fight this thing until he's going to stay until the convention. He's going to be, full of sound and fury about how it's going to be a contested convention. He's going to get his people all riled up, and then he's going to go into that back room and meet with Mike Bloomberg and the other kind of elites of the DNC, and they're going to either kneecap him or they're going to say, look, we'll pay you off. And he'll say, I'll take the paycheck, thank you. And then suddenly you're going to have all these Bernie supporters left holding the bag going, what the heck just happened? Where did he go?
Well, I'll tell you, last night he was stronger than I've ever heard him on how he would support a Biden ticket. And I think
that's very telling, isn't it?
Yeah, I was surprised how far he went. I was surprised how far he went.
Of course. I mean, it's pretty clear, I think, that Bernie, his movement scares the heck out of me.
Me too.
But him as the figurehead, he thankfully he hasn't gone into Lenin mode. He's kind of just going into sellout mode, which I'm fine with. I'd rather him sell out.
Right. I'm reminded of all those 60s, we used to call them Mercedes Marxist or limousine liberals or limousine lefties. I remember, I think I was surprised when I looked up one day whatever happened to Jerry Rubin, He became a stockbroker.
Yes, of course. Of course, they traded in their Birkenstocks for... the Ferragamo penny loafer, that all the Wall Streeters wear.
Exactly. So, but there were a couple interesting moments. I'll tell you the one that caught my eye the most was when they went after Bernie for his positive comments on Cuba. And Bernie said something absolutely right. He said basically to Joe Biden, I said nothing to, the reporter, the moderator picked up on it, that he didn't say anything different than Biden and Obama said about Cuba.
That's true.
It's absolutely true. It's absolutely true.
You and I have spoken about this before. At the end of the day, they're all Marxists. I mean, at the end of the day, all these Democrats are Marxists. They all fundamentally agree. It's just a question of, to what degree, right?
Yeah. No, I mean, Biden didn't have a good answer for that. But Bernie Sanders said President Obama was more generous in his praise of Castro in healthcare and education than I was. Absolutely true. Absolutely.
And then there was, Cuomo from CNN. I remember when Obama flew out to Cuba, Cuomo was following it for CNN, and he was applauding Obama, saying how great Che Guevara was and how much of a friend of the working class of Cuba. And, these people are pathetic. And it's scary because this coronavirus has the potential to give us an economic situation where people panic, and when they panic, they tend to vote stupidly.
Yeah.
And, that's my only concern here, is that the panic causes people to reassess everything, and they're like, well, maybe Biden wouldn't be that bad.
That's a really good point. And that's a really good point, and it is the problem of making an apolitical thing, a non-political thing, political.
Right. Well, because we're talking about people's health,
Yep.
and we're talking about the economy.
Yep.
And those are the two things that tend to unite Democrat and Republican voters
Yep.
against the leader.
Yep.
So that's my concern here, and I think Trump's picked up on it. That's why he's doing these press conferences every day. But here's my concern. People don't remember this. Herbert Hoover was one of the most active presidents we had. And that still didn't stop him from being taken down by the Great Depression.
No.
And so my concern, not to get glum here, is that this thing continues longer than what they're saying it's going to continue as, and people have to deal with these kind of stops to normal life. The economy doesn't quite rebound as they think, and then people blame Trump. And my hope is that Trump can pivot, and he started to do it today, and say, you want to blame me, you should be blaming China. That's who you should be blaming. And then he needs to just keep throwing it back every time the media and the Democrats and Biden try to blame him for the lack of response or whatever. He should just say, look, I didn't do this. It's in China. That's where this thing came from, China. They spread it to the world. And everything that I talked about in 2016 about globalization being too much, free trade not being good for us, open borders being bad, this is the proof. And then he should just start pivoting and turning and trying to get a competitive narrative going, which will be his only saving grace, I think, if the economy doesn't rebound the way it's predicted to, or if the disease doesn't mitigate the way it's supposed to before the election.
No, that's a very fair point. He could easily talk about how these countries have discovered the importance of borders, the importance of immigration restriction. They called me a racist. What are you going to call AMLO? What are you going to call the president of Honduras? What are you going to call Justin Trudeau?
I just got off the phone before I talked to you. I was FaceTiming with my family in Malta.
Yeah.
And my wife's family in Malta. And they were telling me that the EU basically abandoned Malta the first sign of coronavirus, that there is no EU presence in Malta, that there's no assistance coming to the island. That's it. They're on their own. And what my wife's aunt said to me just now before I got on the phone with you was she said, well, we're back to being a nation again. And, I was just in shock. Here is the jarring moment where the nation state now is back to being the primary human political organization tool, and the nations are finding that their supply chains are insufficient and that they're not able to provide for their own people because they spent the last 40 years outsourcing and engaging in globalization.
There you go. There you go. I'm Seth Leibson. He's Brandon Weichert. We have a lot more to do together. We'll be right back. Come a Little Bit Closer by Jay and the Americans. Welcome back. I'm Seth Leibson with Brandon J. Weichert. I don't know why, Brandon. For some reason, do you ever use your cell phone as an alarm set to music or anything? For some reason, I have that song set to it. I don't know why.
Great song.
I wonder what song you have.
Used in Guardians of the Galaxy, the last one. My oldest daughter loves the soundtrack from that movie. So we listen to that song routinely when we're in the car.
Aw, that's great. That's great. Well, one of the things I really do worry about with this coronavirus issue, and I never say the word politicization of it, is that it's hard to discern between what's real and what's not. So, you pay attention to certain things on social media, and you'll get word that under the Stafford Act, the president's going to impose a national quarantine, which is nonsense. My friend John Dombrowski here, who does market analysis and investments, was saying he got a call saying, "I understand the government's going to seize my 401k." You get this kind of paranoid hysteria, and yet there are certain things we do need to be worried about, and we have to not lose our heads here, but we do have to protect our bodies. What's the middle ground for you on this? What's the steady strain for you?
So the first thing to remember, and we've already failed the first test, the first thing to remember is in a situation like this, I believe it's fundamental. You want to act counterintuitive to your basic instinct.
Okay.
And what I mean by that is at the personal level, what's the first thing you want to do instinctively? You want to run to the nearest store and get as much supplies as possible. And this is precisely what a portion of the population did in this country. They went and they bought all the toilet paper, and they bought all of the non-perishable goods they could find, and now it's running up to other goods in the stores. And what that did was it shocked the system. And so those people got extra toilet paper, extra paper towels, extra bleach, extra hand sanitizers, et cetera, et cetera. But what it did was it depleted the stores.
Yep.
And so now, at least down here, the Publixes are closing at 8 p.m., opening at 8 a.m. It used to be at different hours. They used to be open much later than that. And now they're closing because basically not only have they, and they're doing a good job, by the way, here of keeping things on the shelves, but not only have they been depleted, but their warehouses, they're not saying this, but I'm reading between the lines, their warehouses are now being depleted, and so they're having to shut down stores so there's no riots. And this is the problem, is that your first instinct is, well, I have to hoard. I have to go out and get everything because we're going to be under lockdown, and, they're not going to let us leave, and we don't know if there's going to be stuff at the store because what if the guy next to me takes everything before I can get there, yada, yada, yada. Well, what's happening is that's putting an undue strain on an already overstrained system.
Yes.
And so you should be buying what you need, yes, but, you live in a community. And so something that we talk about in our community is, if your neighbor needs extra roll of toilet paper and you've got it, you go over there and you leave it at the door for them.
Sure.
You work together with your community. Yeah. You don't be a jerk. And, because ultimately life will return to some semblance of normalcy. It's just a question of when, and so you don't want to overreact and panic. At the same time, though, I think that it's essential for the population to understand that this is not right now an ordinary event, and and what they're trying to do is basically prevent this thing from breaking the health system.
Yeah.
That's why they want social distancing. That's why the flights around the country are being cut in half, and I think they're going to be altogether shut down soon. That's why they're doing things. That's why Fauci was yesterday suggesting a national lockdown. That's why Tom Cotton's bringing up the National Guard, being ready to be deployed. I think that they're anticipating trying to keep the spread of the disease to a manageable level so not everyone swamps the system.
Okay.
And so we need to work with them on that because I think that's a legitimate concern. And so, you don't want to overreact. You don't want to scare your kids. You don't want to be always watching 24/7 news because they're just going to get you down.
Yeah.
I would say what you want to do is read the Weigert Report, but that's some shameless self-promotion.
No, I'll promote you in that way. It's not self-promotion. Read the Weigert Report.
Thank you. But I do think that you really want to balance that need to freak out and go out and buy all the donuts in the world or whatever you think you need. And keep in mind that you live in a community, and yes, you do need maybe some extra things here and there, but the stores are not going to shut down unless you and your neighbors deplete the store.
That's right. And it was interesting, the reports I saw, I validated, at least anecdotally with some friends on the East Coast, the first stores to be depleted were the ones that, the upper middle class and the upper classes went to, the Whole Foods were the first to go, the ones with premiums on prices. It was kind of an interesting thing, maybe not so surprising when you think about it. Let me take this quick break. We'll come right back, okay?
Okay.
We're talking to Brandon Weigert, he of the Weigert Report, theweigertreport.com, to get it every day. Man, there's a lot of content there. All good. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Seth Leibsohn Show. Delighted to have Brandon Weigert with us. He of the Weigert Report. You can go there, theweigertreport.com, and get so much great information. Brandon, help me understand this. I understand it's fashionable to call the president a racist and a xenophobe and all the rest that you can or anyone could come up with if they just, ran their Hillary Clinton, Bernie Sanders thesauruses. But there's a reporter I like on some stuff, and he's nuts on others, and he just tweeted, just 2 hours after an uncharacteristically normal press conference, Trump swings back to racism and xenophobia. Here's the tweet from Donald Trump. Tell me what I'm missing here. I don't get the racism and xenophobia. Maybe I'm not woke enough. I'll just quote you what the president tweeted. The United States will be powerfully supporting those industries like airlines and others that are particularly affected by the Chinese virus. We will be stronger than ever before. What's racist and xenophobic about that?
He's talking about America instead of the world, and so that's a big no-go to the globalist mentality. We're all one family after all.
I guess,
and
but yeah. But if you think about it, too, you look at these other countries. You were talking about relatives in other countries. You look at Italy. You can look at any of them. None of them were prepared.
No. In fact, they're rationing care, in Italy and the European, quote, socialist, medical systems.
Right.
They're rationing care. And now we're going to have to triage as well here, and so it's going to look a lot like that. But the point is that this glorious, superior way of life that we're told by Bernie and Biden that exists just over the horizon, it doesn't end up being that glorious or superior. It ends up being just as messy, but for different reasons. And I think the takeaway here is twofold. My wife, who works in medicine, she says this all the time. We as Americans need to get comfortable with the fact that we're mortal.
Yeah.
We're going to die.
Yeah.
Death's part of the life,
yeah.
and that's just part of the deal here.
Yeah.
And then another thing is that not all technology will save us. There's a limit to what we can do, and when something like this creeps up, and by the way, back in the day, in ancient times, this kind of stuff was par for the course, and then nobody even knew what was going on. They just died.
That's right.
It's almost one of those things where maybe ignorance would be better.
Well, that's interesting that you say that because, I was listening to Dennis Prager earlier saying it may be smarter to turn off the TV.
Yes.
You didn't need a television to learn about the Spanish flu. But we're not alone. I see Bill Neely of NBC News just tweeted out the entire UK strategy for fighting coronavirus was based on false analysis. Scientists advising the government now say the UK only just realized in the last few days.
Well, I would argue, Seth, I would argue all of our analyses are based on bad evidence from China. The data's corrupted.
Right.
I keep telling people this. You can't trust the Chinese data sets. They're corrupted.
Yeah.
So, there's talking about how they're back open for business, but then a Chinese, now admittedly this is an anti-government activist in China, so they have an agenda. It's one that I happen to support, of course. Mm-hmm. But so I don't know if it's true or not. But they tweeted at me last night at like 2 a.m. Images of the day after they reopened Wuhan and Hubei province, saying that it's clear to the virus. The military's rolling into parts of the city again because there's more outbreaks now. And so that's the video, at least. I can't confirm it, but it sounds, to me, that sounds like something China would do. It's a total Enron. The China's basically Enron. They're cooking the books. And here we are taking all their data sets for granted. We have nobody on the ground in China. We have no infectious disease experts long-term going over there and basically, working hand in hand physically with the Chinese. We're relying entirely on the Chinese government to filter data to us. And they have an agenda, which is to not look bad, because they are the source of this thing, whether it's created or not. And that I think this was coming from a lab. It doesn't matter, though. It came from China, and they're trying to not look bad.
By the way, you're having a problem with Facebook because of your reporting on China. Do you want to say something about that?
Yeah, they're coming at me big time.
Yeah, talk to me. What's going on?
Yeah, so basically, within 45 minutes of getting off the phone with the Bachelor show last week, in which I sort of started to really divulge all of the information that I've been researching and all of the things that I've been doing about trying to determine if Senator Cotton's claims about this coming from the Wuhan Virology Institute are in fact true, and I'm getting a lot of data on this. Mm-hmm. Suddenly Facebook, I've had my Facebook page for the Weicker Report since 2015, never had a problem. Suddenly I start getting all of these complaints about fake news, and we're suspending your page, and then, you can still keep the page, but no one's going to see it. And I went through the complaint, and they're coming at me for posting articles unrelated to coronavirus mostly, from the Epoch Times, which is a Falun Gong-associated paper, which, of course, the Chinese Communist Party hates, from the New York Post, and from Investors Business Daily. So I finally got through to Facebook about 3 days ago, and basically they were completely unwilling to work with me or to be helpful at all, and they just kept saying you violated the community standards because those sources were fake news. And I said, wait a second, if you're going to punish me, a little guy, single person here, for sharing the Epoch Times, Investors Business Daily, and the New York Post, why aren't you going after them if they're supposedly fake news? No answer, of course, from them. The real reason is because I'm getting attacked right now across the board from China. My website is under attack from China. I'm getting pinged by social media bots on Twitter from pro-Chinese sources. It's because I think it's related to my coronavirus coverage, and I think it's because I'm onto something, and I'm going to keep pressing, and I'm not going to stop until if something happens to me. Obviously, that's different, but I'm going to keep going.
Good. You keep going. It's amazing to me what other journalists are trying to do with this, though. Remember Mara Gay? I didn't know who she was until she appeared on the Brian Williams But was it, Brian Williams last week saying that Michael Bloomberg could have given $1 million to every American.
Oh, yeah, these people are just jokes.
So Mara Gay tweets out today.
Money, they're getting paid to be dumb.
She tweets out today, Trump told governors this morning they're on their own. He said no such thing.
No, I know. And if anything, by the way, South Korea's model shows federalism is actually the best way to handle this thing, where you have coordination at the top in the federal level, but you let the local labs and provinces work it out, figure it out on their own, because they know their people better. And so, but you're right. That's not what he said. That was a complete misrepresentation, and it's classic, mainstream media. This is what you come to expect. North Korean media, I think, is often more truthful in that that they're lying to you. There's no pretense. Here in America, our mainstream media, for the most part, is lying to us most of the time, and they pretend like they're objective. I don't even think they know what the meaning of the word objective is.
I think you're right. I think they realize they have a role in life, and their role and their role is
the corporations and the globalists.
To preserve the progressive cause.
That's right.
That to them is the journalistic duty. No
they
question.
love China.
Yeah.
Scaramucci's on Twitter right now going after Trump. And I just tweeted at him. I said, wait a second. If you're mad at Trump, you should be really mad at your buddies in China. But, of course, Scaramucci does business in China, so he's never going to say anything about the Chinese.
Brandon Weichert, you're the best. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
God bless you.
See you next week.
You got it.